If you're passionate about leadership, invested in your community, or simply curious about the people driving change around us, you're in the right place. This is Direct with Dana.
Hello, this is Dana Brooks of Basic Brooks Law Offices, and you are back with another episode of Direct with Dana. This week, I have a friend of mine. She's also a prominent a lawyer here in town. Her name is Katherine Viker, and you probably are thinking, I know that face. I know that voice, and you do, because she's been in the news again a lot lately for a case that she represented. She was just recently representing the plaintiffs in the case against Fabian Basabe. This was all over the news. It was TMZ, it was everywhere. It was all over social. It's all you could ever see. It was a case that happened here in Leon County Circuit Court. But before we get into all that, welcome, Katherine, and tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, how you came to be a lawyer, because you didn't do that conventionally either, like me, and then what kind of law you're practicing. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. You and I have been friends for a very, very long time. It's certainly a privilege to be here. I was born, adopted, and reared in Tallahassee. All of my children were born here. Same with my husband. I'm a local. I'm a Tallahassee lassie, and I couldn't be more proud of that history here. Now, I, like you, married young and had a child very young. I was a preacher's kid. Daddy preached at St. John's and was also one of the vice presidents at FSU. So I understood this assignment to be a preacher's kid, and I embraced it fully. I'm pretty sure he has a martyr's crown waiting for him in heaven.
So you were a wild child.
That was just the understatement of the world. I'm surprised they didn't just honor kill me. I was a rough kid, and I really was. And I accept that. I'm sorry, Daddy. So I married very, very young and had children. I wanted out of that house. And turns out I was wrong. For those who are listening, stay young as long as you can.
Yes,
because adulting, I give it 1 star. Do not recommend. It's a lot of work. But I married very young and I had a child very young. And I'm still very close to my first husband. He's a wonderful human. But this child was a special needs child. And so we wound up needing extra intervention with him, some IEPs, some help, things that were just necessary for this child at a time where we really didn't understand medications. We didn't understand. The first thing they wanted to do is put a child on Ritalin or Seroquels. And we've learned a lot. Yeah. But I realized very early on, I was likely going to need to advocate. And
that gets so many women into law. Is having a need in their personal life to take the bull by the horns because they're not getting anywhere with the other people who are supposed to be doing it. And so they take charge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I sort of fell into it. And then I thought, well, I was going to do environmental law and with a minor in urban planning. And
no, that's a great thing, especially to be in this community.
Well, I'll tell you, 20, 30 years ago, really, I was doing the dual enrollment. The urban planners were like, well, we're going to know in 20 years. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'm not working doing this. I'm not paying for this. I'll come back in 20 years, tell me what happened.
Yeah.
So I went straight for the Juris Doctorate. And while I was there, I got into mock trial, which is where I found I was a trial lawyer. I didn't know that.
You are a trial lawyer, lady.
I love it.
You are natural. I've watched you in trial a couple of times, and not everybody's cut out for that. And that's great because there's lots of things for lawyers to do. Not everybody needs to be in a courtroom. And if you are not set up for it, you really shouldn't be there. And you learned that firsthand.
We did see some of that
Basabe trial, but I'm going to tease that because I want to get a little bit more orientation for you because you did go to law school a little bit later after some life experience, which I think is
I didn't go until my late 20s. That's correct. And then I didn't graduate till my 30s. By this time I was married again and wound up in my 30s. I had 4 more children. And so you know how I parent. I behind
full
the scenes
and very much active and very much raise these kids to know their place in the world, find their place, survive in the world. And kind of, it's almost like a take no prisoners thing. Like, this is life, go out, embrace it, love it.
Yeah, we don't gentle parent
for you.
I'm a Gen Xer like you.
Yeah.
We do not gentle parent. No happens. We say no. And I'm very proud of my children.
Oh, yeah.
And then I had a late in life, wonderful surprise.
You had a surprise baby.
I have a surprise baby. And so I really didn't get back into doing full-time legal work until my mid-40s.
And remember that, anybody who's listening to that, law doesn't have to be a very linear profession. It's not like a lot of people equate it to something like medicine. And you get out and you do residency and you do this and you do so many years or whatever. You can take all kinds of routes to be a lawyer, and especially women out there listening. Listen to Katherine Viker, because she raised her kids. She raised her own kids. And then whenever they were developmentally where they needed to be, boom, you're back practicing law with more than you've ever given it before. You're just going at it.
I love it. I couldn't be happier. And I will tell the women out there listening, I do believe that you can have it all. For me, I couldn't have it all at the exact same time.
Yeah.
So I chose to full-time parent, and then I have chosen now to embrace my career. Now that the children are older, I'm not mommy anymore. I'm mom.
And they're very proud of you for that. They're very proud when they see what their mother does, and they. I love the whole scene about everything you've done with the way you raise your kids and how you parent them and what you allow them to see and figure out for themselves. That is so incredibly key. But tell me what kind of law that you practice and the types of cases that you take.
So I've practiced over my career. I've done defense. I've dabbled in some family law. I touched very briefly on a criminal case. So I've had my hands in a lot of things. But for a decade now, I have focused on plaintiffs' work. That is what I'm passionate about. I wasn't as passionate about defense. And I had a wonderful opportunity. I got to work with John Durr, if you know him. Wonderful, wonderful experience as defense. But I am a plaintiff's lawyer.
That's what I find, that some people, as a lawyer, you're supposed to be able to put on either hat, zealously prosecute, zealously defend, not really have an emotional stake in it. And I know you could do that and have done that, and same with me, but I find it's just easier. It's just a better fit whenever you are working on the kind of cases that sit right with your soul. And for me and for you, that's plaintiffs. That means we're the ones who are representing the people who have been harmed in some way. And we're going out, helping them stand up for themselves and get what they deserve and get the fair compensation they deserve. We get looked down on a lot because people think you're just looking for money or easy paycheck instead of.
But we've got the burden. We are pushing the rock uphill, and our success rate, is lower. So now I have had 7 trials in the last 18 months, and I've won 6. I got a directed verdict on 1.
That is a lot of trial work.
It's a lot of trial work. It's what I do. And by the time you and I are going to trial, now my focus is employment law. Yours is personal injury, different types of law. But by the time you and I are going into trial, it needs to be tried for one way or another. And it's not as though we do it for fun per se. I mean, you and I both enjoy it. But by the time you have gotten to a trial, it needs to be tried.
Yeah.
It's time for a jury.
What people don't understand about the plaintiff side is, and this is one of the reasons why it's very gratifying. It's very risky, though, because you're using your own money to obtain the cases in the first place. You are investigating the case with your own money, all the costs, but also all those people on your payroll that you're paying. Correct. They got to get paid whether that case pops or not. So all of that is a risk. And then you're investigating this case, and then you go, oh, this is a very good, sound case. I will prosecute that case. Well, what if you investigated and found out it wasn't? You're out all the money, all the people you paid for. That's just part of the risk of being in the plaintiff's world versus, and if you're a defense lawyer, you get paid no matter what. You get paid no matter what, but you don't pick your cases. They're assigned to you, and you got to look at whatever the heck they just plopped in your lap and go, oh, we'll come up with something, I guess. But, you don't pick them. We pick ours because I'm spending my own money prosecuting this in my own time, and I don't want to lose money. So I'm very selective about my cases. So that's a very big distinction in terms of the reality of practicing on the plaintiff side. Very much so. So why, given all that risk, is it still what you feel is your calling? I am passionate about righting what I believe to be a wrong. And I think you said it best when you and I did the Tallahassee magazine, and you described yourself as a bully's bully. And I thought, spot on. I'm adopting. Yeah. When I'm going in for an employment case, it's because someone has been treated wrongly because of their race, their religion. It can be their complexion. It could be because they blew the whistle. You've wronged somebody for doing the right thing, or something that's none of your business, or none of your business. Exactly. Or something they can't even help. Right? Like your complexion. And I find that just offensive that here we are in 2026 and these are still issues. They are issues. And I will tell you, I have seen some bad behavior really come to rise
just in the last 8 years, people have gotten very comfortable saying things, doing things, being what I think is just grossly offensive. And we have just seen what juries think about that all the way up to our representatives.
We have, and I want to talk about that when we get back. We're about to head into a break, but I want to talk about the tolerance for bad behavior on the rise. And that's one of those things I think comes from the top. The fish rots from the head. The tone is set there. And when we call people names and we bully people for things that used to be protected or off limits or taboo to discuss, when we normalize that kind of stuff, we get a really negative discourse starting. So we'll talk about that and how you're dealing with those sorts of issues in your practice when we come back after our break with a discussion with Katherine Viker. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Direct with Dana, straight talk for forward thinkers, presented by Fasig Brooks. And here's your host, Dana Brooks.
Hello, and we are back with Direct with Dana. I'm Dana Brooks, and I'm joined today with my attorney friend, Katherine Viker. She's an employment lawyer here in town. And Katherine, you just tried a case against Fabian Basabe, and it is all over the news. It is on social media. I can't turn on my phone. And now that anybody's phone is on who's listening to this, you're going to get it on your feed now, too. If you don't know what this is a man. He's a former reality TV star, I believe. You'll fill in more than this, but he's currently a state representative in Miami Gardens. Or Miami
he's been elected twice now for Miami Beach. I believe it's District 106. He's up for re-election now.
Okay. Let's see. Let's start with this. That was quite a trial. Tell the listeners what you were suing him for. And I watched a couple of hours of this trial, and I've talked to the judge who presided over it. Bless his heart, Judge Lee Marsh.
He was incredible.
The man he's just. I don't know how you get through trials where you have to talk about the types of things y'all all talked about. Let me just shut up and let you talk about it. Tell me what you sued this man over, who you represented, and then we could talk about how it all went off the rails. And this man was representing himself through ChatGPT and Claude and Lord knows what else. But just give us an orientation to this craziness.
So we represented Jacob Cutbirth and Janet and Nick Frivola, who are the mother and son. Okay. And we represented the mother and son for defamation. And then Jacob and Nick Frivola, Jacob Cutbirth and Nick Frivola for battery and sexual harassment.
They were his aides at some point? Is that
Nick Frivola was his aides and Jacob Cutbirth was his intern.
Okay.
And so it was... I did not work the case up. So, you know how these things work.
Sometimes somebody will do the workup of a case, and then when it gets ready to go to trial, then that person will then become a subject matter expert, and then a trial lawyer will take over kind of the lead in trying the case, sort of thing.
Right. So this case, and I'm so very fortunate because we were able to do what we were able to do because we have a good team. Anybody who gets up there and just
Cindy Gray tried that case with you. She did an excellent job.
Cindy Martin, correct.
Wrong name?
Yes, Cynthia Meyer.
Cynthia Meyer, I'm so sorry.
Anyone who gets up and pats themselves on the back and was like, I've done this, I'm so amazing, is not being honest because it is a team effort.
Oh, sure.
To get it all the way up there.
You can't try a case by yourself.
Absolutely not. And so this was a combination of Marie and Cindy and the Maddox support staff. Mm-hmm. And so we were able to come together. And what we had on the other side was a pro se litigant.
And that means somebody who is representing themselves. They do not have a lawyer there. And you hear about that in child support hearings, stuff like that. It's a whole other thing whenever you are talking about trying a case, defending yourself in a trial court, circuit court against real trial lawyers. And that's what this man did. And he is not a lawyer by trade.
But this wasn't the first time he had represented himself. He had done it before. So
he's uneducable.
Yeah, ChatGPT 0. Experienced lawyers too.
Okay.
It was most interesting, the conduct. But his previous case involved down in Miami where his address was, and he litigated that himself. And for whatever reason, and who knows the why, he decided to represent himself. He had had a lawyer previously. He had gone pro se for at least a year, as I understand it, and chose to remain that way. And so this was, as I learned on day 2, after offering the world Altoids, thinking, it was off. People saw firsthand the struggles, the dropping of the papers. And by the end of the first day, what you do, and you and I know this, you do what's called motions in limine. And those are things that are going to be left out of trial. And they're basic things that are left out of trial.
It's to make sure before you go in there, you don't have a bunch of mistakes in front of the jury and ended up having to do it all over again. So the lawyers get together with the judge before the trial and they talk about what the jury is going to be able to hear and see and what we're going to keep out of the jury's
correct
your site.
And some of it is really basic.
Exactly.
For instance, settlement negotiations, you never discuss those in front of the jury. In this case, any kind of criminal charges, because this was a civil case, and which is with a completely different standard.
Totally
than
different
what you would
standard
have.
of proof, totally different consequences, totally different burdens. Everything about it is different between civil and criminal.
Also was making comments about the lawyers, and he referred to us as fancy lawyers. So beginning with his opening, he was off on the wrong foot, in my opinion. And by the end of the first day, he had made so many, what I believe Judge Marsh adequately described as blatant violations of the court order, that the discussion of a mistrial came up.
And with a mistrial, just to help people out, that queers the entire thing. You got to start over, and it's an incredibly expensive pursuit. And that's why if you're the cause of it, you get in a bunch of trouble with the judge.
Well, and Judge Marsh did say if it comes to this, there's going to be sanctions, and that would arguably be the cost of our fees, the cost of coming up to it to date. And it began to dawn on me.
It's probably what he wants.
That's exactly what he wants.
Yeah.
And so I actually said that. I said, Your Honor, he's not stupid. This is he's filed a motion to continue. Yeah. This is exactly what he wants. And so I decided to do something different. I'm not asking for a mistrial. I want you to do another form of sanctions. And I asked repetitively that his defenses be stricken, which is another legal maneuver.
And that's a big sanction, because what it means then is all you're going to be able to argue about is damages, meaning how much money you got to pay, if you have to pay any at all.
Correct.
That means you don't get to say, I didn't do it, or I did it, but I had a good reason. All that's over if your defenses are stricken. All we're doing is saying, pretend he just admitted to everything here, and let's go figure out
if
it's damaged, and if they're damaged, and if so, how much.
Right. So none of the elements of a battery, none of the elements of defamation, none of the elements of sexual actions have to be proven. And
makes it a lot easier for the plaintiff's attorney.
Absolutely. So I was arguing it as this is a lesser sanction to the mistrial, but Judge Marsh very adequately and accurately pointed out that's actually even stronger. And so I kept it on the record, and I think that Judge Marsh did an exceptional job, really kind of saving me from myself. Because
well, he has to do that. I'm watching him, and there's nothing worse, I don't think, for a judge or really a lawyer than to be involved in something where somebody doesn't have a lawyer, because we're not all singing from the same page of music. You've got someone who's severely handicapped, and your natural tendency is to do their work for them. And so sometimes I've been in this situation before, and the judge will start making things very clear, or, do you want to say something, sir? Or what? I'm like, Judge,
what are you doing?
What are you doing? He could have gotten a lawyer, whatever. Don't help him. But I find that, and I saw you do it a little bit. I saw Cindy do it, and I have done it myself. You, as the opposing lawyer, want a record that will support and sustain whatever outcome you get. And if there's a lot of error in the record, in the proceedings, then the whole thing could be for naught. An appellate court can throw that whole thing out. So it is a very interesting conundrum to be in, because you don't want to help the person beat, the case that you're bringing against them, but you don't want to let them unspool to the point where they just screw up the whole thing, and we've got to do this all again. It's just
they taint the jury with things that they shouldn't hear. So one of the other things we did is that it was on the news that things he had mentioned in his opening that he wasn't allowed to. And so the second day in the morning, I mentioned the judge had been on the news. We needed, he came up with, let's ask the jury a broad-based question, see if anybody had heard anything. And then again on the third day, because again, the defendant had violated the judge's order, and the news had picked up on it. And so again, we pulled in. And at that point, one of the jurors he raised his hand, and everyone was ushered out and said, okay, what did you hear? I was just asked if this was mine. I said I couldn't talk about it. Boom, done, moving on.
Good.
So it was.
That's a good honest juror. Jurors tend to be very, very ethical and honest in my experience. They take that role very, very seriously. While we have a break, though, I want to head into a break and talk about what we want to get into next. I want to talk next about a little bit more about how that Fabian Basabe trial went, but I want to talk to you specifically about how you deal with those very delicate issues. You had to talk about some really salacious, painful stuff. Let's talk about that when we come back after the break with Direct with Dana. We'll be right back.
Questions, opinions, and real conversations. That's what we're here for. We'll be right back with more Direct with Dana.
And we are back with Direct with Dana. I'm Dana Brooks of Fabian Brooks Law Offices, and I'm joined today by my dear friend, Katherine Viker. She is an employment law attorney. She works with the offices of Marie Maddox. We're talking about the trial you just had in front of Circuit Judge Lee Marsh here in the Second Judicial Circuit. You were suing this famous person that I'd never heard of, but apparently,
it's not my first trip to the fame rodeo.
I know it isn't, and I want to get through this so we can talk to the rest of it. You're a fame magnet. You've had very, very interesting cases involving prominent figures, but this Fabian Basabe trial, that had a lot of salacious testimony. It was involving allegations of sexual nature,
just grotesque misconduct,
just grotesque, touching, phrases like sport, whatting, and
blanking,
just
rhymes with duck.
Awful. And, I ran into Judge Marsh afterwards and I looked at him and I said, when I was trying cases, we never got to say threesome. We never got to talk about that.
That came out, and not involving the wife. And I will say this, and I want to make this very, very clear. This is not about his lifestyle or his sexual preferences. No. This is about the misconduct.
It's about somebody who has, probably alternative, interesting lifestyle or whatever.
Which he's allowed to do as long as everyone is consenting.
All day long.
My clients were not consenting.
No. And they were trying to learn and help. Most people who work for anybody who's an elected official, they're trying to accomplish something. They have some sort of a driving principle that makes them want to get into politics or public policy. And so I've seen this so many times. So I'll see young people and they'll get with these people and they get so disillusioned and they're so turned off about elected officials, politics, all that. And you would think at some point we started cleaning that up, but it looks like you said earlier, it's like the tables turned and now everybody's free to be the most basal, primitive selves. But how do you handle that when you've got to put on some testimony that is going to, raise some eyebrows, really offend some people's sense of dignity and propriety? But you've got to show the human side of your clients and what they suffered as a result of all this.
It is a fine rope to walk, but it has to be done. And you have to tell the truth. So as part of my opening, one of the things that I mentioned to the juries, they were going to hear some things that were going to be disturbing, possibly hear things, and that were vulgar. Mm-hmm. And to just bear with me, keep an open mind. One of the things that I looked for also, because this was male on male, mm-hmm. Which is not as uncommon, I think people would believe.
Men don't want to act on it a lot of times. They're very embarrassed to stand up for themselves when they're aggressive like that.
Absolutely. And so one of the first questions I asked during Venare was, can we all agree that a man can be sexually harassed? Mm-hmm. And so those are the things you're kind of looking for at the outset, is people who understand that it's not just women and children, mm-hmm. that a man can also be abused and sexually harassed. Mm-hmm. And the testimony came out that this...
And suffer from it,
Absolutely suffer from it.
It's very hard to humanize something like that when it's in the context of something just so outrageous, because again, this is Miami, this is alternative lifestyle, this is reality TV, this is all these trappings of things that can really look bright and shiny and take the focus off what you really need to be paying attention to. And I could see how so many people can get caught up in that. And then there's the shame that comes with it, which is, I probably should have been hanging around them. I'm probably a hanger on, or they think I'm just trying to get around, cool, exciting people to build my network or my reputation. I probably deserve this. This is what happens whenever you hang around people like this. How do you get, especially your male clients, to find their backbone and stand up for themselves and say, you need to stand up for yourself, but also make sure this person doesn't keep doing this.
Well, that's what I think Mr. Cutbirth and Mr. Favola have done. And I'm so very proud of them and their willingness to speak the truth, describe and even demonstrate what was done to them. Some of the comments that were made to them were so offensive. Penis size. How is that? Who says that in the workplace?
How is that ever appropriate for your boss or your leader to ever be doing? It's just nuts. But that wasn't. I mean, that was just the tip.
That was the tip. Yeah, not to try to be funny. Yeah. That was the tip, and it expanded. There were slaps. There were slaps of aggression.
Yeah. Any unwanted touching, is a battery.
There was buttocks grabbing. There was inner thigh rubbing, and I think Mr. Cutbirth said it very, very well when he said, and this is a man who works in a gay bar.
Yeah.
And he has no problem. He's been come on to many times. Yeah. And all he just says is, thanks, I'm not interested. And it stops there. And that was his testimony, is that I thought it would stop when I said no, but it didn't stop. And one of the exhibits is an email where he said, I don't want to go back to the Capitol. I have to quit the Capitol. I can't be around this, basically. And But what am I going to do? I quit altogether because I need to put this on a resume. When you're a little person, right? When you're somebody with no privilege and no power, and you're putting yourself through school and you're working at bars, you're working 3 jobs. Yeah. And Mr. Favola had worked 5 years starting off as volunteers, working his way into internship. And in all of this, neither one of them had ever experienced or seen anything like this. Yeah. And so this is their time.
He's just a predator.
I think prolific. There was some testimony the jury did not hear. I absolutely believe that witness.
And that's an important part too. Whenever you have a trial, you don't get just to pile on everything there is to know about anybody. It's got to be relevant to what we're talking about. Just like if you get a ticket, you can't tell the police officer, oh, you can't give me this ticket because I've driven for 50 years and I never speed. He's like, I don't care. You're speeding right now.
Or don't give me one because I've had
Or don't
give
me one because, or they've got to be speeding because they speed all the time. Well, if they're not speeding right now, they don't get the ticket. We're only looking at what's going on right now. But I want to talk to you about the more, the AI, the weirdness about how that trial went, because this is all just starting to creep in. I've never tried a case where we've had AI creep into it. This AI was all over this.
Everything was AI.
This man was, I watched this. And the judge commented on it. It's in the record, but he's doing everything off his phone. He's got either ChatGPT, Claude, something like that, telling him what to do. He's got a piece of paper he's written out, or he's got typed out objections on it. And he kept saying, I've lost my objection sheet. I've lost my objection sheet. I'm like, you need to go find that. Take a break.
We all usually keep one next to us,
But I mean, it's just like, we don't ever say, I lost my objection cheat sheet. We don't say it so much.
I think my favorite was, I have no idea what she just said. That was
say that a lot.
One of my favorites.
And then one of the times Katherine objected, and he goes, well, then I guess I'm going to object. And I'm just like, no, that's not. And I'm looking at this judge.
Just
I'm going, how are you keeping it together right now?
But was our judge not remarkable in his composure?
It's exactly what you want of a judge. Even killed.
I don't know if you know about him.
Serious.
But he, as I understand, I think he was the valedictorian of the naval base. This is a man who would literally get into a submarine and go down to where you couldn't swim to the top. And he kept his cool. I was having a panic attack just hearing about it.
I was supposed to say, they have to go through psychological evaluations.
Well,
anybody
let me tell
in
you,
a submarine
couldn't have asked for a more. I would lose my mind just thinking about being in a submarine. And he deliberately did that. And so when you want to talk about someone who was composed, poised, had his act together, knew what he was doing, and maintained. You couldn't fluster him if you tried.
No, that was one of those cases where the judge mattered more than ever in terms of the pace and the tone, because that kind of thing can get away from. There's nothing worse than having lawyers and having somebody who doesn't have a lawyer, because they don't know the rules. They don't know the evidence. They don't know how to set things up. They think that all they got to do is get a microphone and they can say anything they want to the jury. And that's not how that goes. You have to, if you want to play the game, you got to know the rules. That's the first thing I learned in law school. And he did not know them. He was relying on ChatGPT or some AI thing. And he was looking off his phone. It was a comedy of errors, but he looked This is the difference, though.
It was offensive to me at one point.
Enjoys...
It just got to that place where it was like, you are making a mockery of all of this, because for you, this is playtime. This is a hobby.
Your trust fund baby.
He exactly said that. He said, do you honestly think I'd get in your Mazda? I was floored. It's like, have you seen my beat up minivan?
I'm not offering you a ride in my Mazda.
Yeah.
He did enjoy pretty privilege, though, because
he told me he was pretty.
He's a very attractive man, and he was dressed a natty dresser. He looked like somebody who would be a high-powered lawyer. He definitely looked like somebody who should have a high-powered lawyer. So it was just vexing all the way around for me to understand, because he obviously had the means to have a lawyer. So I don't understand if this is just some sort of, hubris, unbridled hubris.
Could be that he treated it like a show. It was a reality show. I really don't know why he just chose to do that. I think I think people are just. I think it's credible evidence that when you represent yourself, you have a fool for a client.
I think it's proof. It's proof.
Not well thought out.
Listen, we're going to wrap up this segment. We're going to come back to the last segment, and I want to talk more about the very interesting life of Katherine Viker, because you have a relationship with a very important person that has caused you to have a very interesting life. You do some very fun things. You get to attend neat things and meet neat people. You deposed Ed Sheeran representing this man. So when we get back from our break, I want to finish up our last segment with Katherine Viker. Just talk about what an incredible, exciting practice she has.
I know cool people. That's what it is.
You know some cool people.
I know cool people.
We'll be right back.
You're listening to Direct with Dana, straight talk for forward thinkers, presented by Fabian Brooks. And here's your host, Dana Brooks.
And we are back with Direct with Dana. This is the final segment of my interview with local attorney, employment law attorney, Katherine Viker. She's been a friend of mine for many, many years. And when two lawyers get together and just talk about war stories, we end up cackling. But yours are not just funny. Yours are very interesting. Not everybody knows George Clinton. And Parliament
Funkadelic.
Okay. He's been in the news a lot lately because he's our Tallahassee person. We love him. And everybody around here has pretty much had an opportunity, maybe seen him perform. I think he performed.
We just did our first Funk Fest at the Phipps Farm.
Yeah.
April 11th. We're going to go again next year. Please come. It was wonderful in a time where we are tense and pulled apart, and just to have, over 1,000 people come and celebrate joy, pure joy coming together. We were one nation under a groove, Bet, and it was funkadelic, funk fantastic. It was amazing.
No, I don't really remember how y'all know each other, but I know that you have been with him. You have
it's a fun story.
You represented him, and she had some case. It was all over the news. And I told her, so why am I hearing from reporters from New York City and you're not blowing yourself up? Believe it or not, as outgoing as this woman is, she's humble and she doesn't toot her horn enough. But she had one of those copyright infringement lyric type things, and you were suing Ed Sheeran on his behalf and deposed him a couple times. And Sony.
Yeah. And I will say
this chick's all over Manhattan doing all this stuff. I'm like, hello, did I just see you on the news?
Well, I actually wrote to you because I was trying to avoid the press.
I know.
And I had snuck out the side and with the clients, and George was with us visiting. This was the book of Ed Townsend, and our client was Katherine Griffin Townsend, who was also a dear friend and love her to pieces. So I'm sneaking out the side and trying to avoid it. We've sent, Ben Crump was there with us, wonderful man. It's a hardworking man. He was the first one there in the morning, the last one to leave at night. And so the next thing I know, I've gotten phone calls the next day. You're on Good Morning America. You're on the Today Show. You're on the cover of the Post. And I look tired. And, and I wrote to you and said, apparently you should check your makeup before you leave. And she writes back one word to me, like, you dummy, always.
Well, that's what's the difference in men and women, is when we go out for a press conference, we probably have professional hair and makeup. You probably had a shower. So
yeah, and I am a tomboy. I'm not like, you're a girly girl. Whitney Claire's a girly girl. My girls are girly girls. And then they're friends with this tomboy. Oh. So, next time I do a trial, I'm going to have our friend Lisa come and do my makeup. Lisa, Image by Lisa, right? And so she's going to come and do me because I really don't know how.
Well, you get your picture taken so much you need to. But how did you even get to know him and get to represent him and have this exciting stuff? It's not exactly employment law, but in some ways it's a lot of contract type of negotiating and contract disputes. But what tell me about how that all even came up.
So what I did with him was a family law case, and that was how we met. And so that was a private matter. I was actually contacted by TMZ, and I was like, not talking. He was at a Kinko's, I was at a Kinko's. I have a minivan because I have 1 billion children. And at one point, I think I had 20, the goats and the chickens and all the animals. So I need a van.
Some livestock.
Got some livestock. And I liked this van he was in. And so I just approached. That was how we met.
It.
And so never be afraid to approach people, because you never know how it's going to change your stars. And George and I kind of changed each other's stars. He was just talking about it when we were at the Essence Festival. He was telling people, he's like, Katherine's the one that cleared the way. And, for him and his beautiful, lovely wife, Carlon, they're the godfather and godmother of my youngest son. And it's funny how sometimes you meet people and you do a very brief case with them, and then they become part of your extended family. And I think you at Fasek and Brooks, Carrie and Jimmy and you have talked about that, how people start off in one part, but then they just become friends that are family. And so we do Christmas with them, and they're our godparents. This is our family. And that led to me meeting Katherine Griffin. And when she had the issue with the copyright case, George, she said, who do I want? He said, you want Katherine, because she didn't care about being famous. And that was one of the things I think that spoke out, is that when TMZ reached me, the first thing I did was forward it to him. I didn't know how famous. And he called about 15 minutes later, and I said, I've just sent you an email that that's what I'm calling about. And I said, well, you're the only person I filed. This can only be you. I know you're a musician. He said, you need to Google me. So I Googled him.
Yeah, Google him.
He said, why don't you Google me? And so I said, George, you're famous. He goes, yeah, baby, I'm funking famous. And I got tickled. And I said, well, I'm not going to talk to him. This is because the divorce is a private matter, and because you're a celebrity, that does not mean the public gets to know your private life.
Yeah.
And I was a bit offended. And he said, you're the first lawyer that has not sold me out for a plug. And that really spoke to my heart. And it left a tinge, because I just thought, who are we as a...
Well, think about somebody like that. They probably have to second guess a lot of the people in their orbit. Are these really my friends?
Yes.
I'm sure that's part of it. And this isn't his first rodeo.
This is not his first rodeo.
He's been around a minute. And so I imagine he's a pretty discerning judge of character.
Well, he has been really wonderful. And from that, I've gotten to, for 13 years now, go on tour with this incredible band, meet people I wouldn't normally meet.
I know, you go all over.
I got to go to the Essence Festival, and we were my son and I were going, but we wound up also going as the guest of a Mr. Charlie Basalani, who was George's manager back in the day. And he and his current manager, Archie Ivy, go way back. They're all friends. And it was wonderful because people would see Charlie. Vivian Chu was there. She called him a living legend. Y'all can Google, figure out Charlie has been around for a very long time, and he and George are just the dearest friends. And I got to be a part of this incredible cultural celebration on our 250th anniversary.
That's awesome.
It was perfect. And I got to Flava Flav was hilarious. He's super funny. Patti LaBelle was there. Nona Hendricks was there. Kim Burrell called down the mothership in that wonderful operatic voice. I mean, just not a dry eye in the place. It was so absolutely beautiful. But I had come up on stage, and just to give you an idea about how humble people are, I was coming backstage, and as I was walking over to Ben and to Kathy, and I passed this gorgeous woman, and I walked over and said, that woman is a dead ringer for Patti LaBelle. And she goes, blank, that is Patti LaBelle. And I was like, oh my gosh. And she said,
I've actually been to that once. I've actually been to the Essence Music Festival.
I got to meet her. She walked me over there to meet her, and she was so sweet. She goes, would you like, let's take a picture? And I was like, yes, please. Because normally I really give celebrities their space, especially if we're backstage, especially if we're in a place where you just don't bother. But it was her idea, because she's such a gracious and humble woman. And let me just tell you, she looks absolutely fabulous. And
he is a Tallahassee treasure.
He truly is. And a good man. Good man.
He's very generous. I know a lot of people who have experienced his generosity, and it's all very private. It's nothing anybody ever talks about or shares, but he's a good neighbor to Tallahassee. Let me ask you a couple of other questions about your practice and what kind of things you want to do. I know that you have represented people who are discriminated for various things in their employment, but is that harder to do in the state capitol? Or is it easier because, sovereign immunity, if people work for the government, a lot of times their compensation is limited. Your attorney's
Correct.
fees are limited.
Correct.
So, and it seems like you have to litigate and go to trial and everything versus like in my world, most things are settled. Most things are compromised and there's an agreement that's worked out.
Yeah, but we're willing to go to trial. I'll go to trial in a heartbeat.
I know you will. And it's very important to be able to do that. But it seems like you have to go to trial much more in the employment arena, in the employment world, than in other parts of civil law. Am I wrong about that? And if I'm right about it, why is that?
I do think it may be harder to practice in the Capitol because keep in mind, in this particular city, we are the biggest employer of for state agencies, right? And so you either work for the state or you serve the people who do predominantly. There's very little exception to that. So for us, we are capped. And this is a labor of love. You and I have talked, work smarter, Katherine, not harder, that I would probably make more money if I did a different type of law. But it is passion. I am very, very lucky that I work at a firm. I work with a woman who has children of her own. I am at this point in life, if I need to do a Zoom, work from home that day instead of in the office, let's say I have a child who's homesick, I get to do that. And that's one of the things that I think is wonderful about having women in this profession. We need to see more with their names on the door.
You're preaching to the choir.
I know I am.
And that is what I think, and I've tried to get you into it, and you're going to get into it, Society of Women Trial Lawyers, but it's a group of trial lawyers, national group. And so much of it is that. It is about all these frustrations you're having. I bet you if you work with some women lawyers, you would be feeling it because they know what you're dealing with. Katherine, I have so much enjoyed having you with me here today. And I like to just talk to you anyway, but I knew everybody else would enjoy hearing from you as well. You have such a interesting and storied career, and your education, your upbringing, everything about you is interesting. You're never going to have a dull moment sitting talking with Katherine Viker. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you all for listening to another episode of Direct with Dana, where I talk to interesting people and try to get them to tell us things that we're curious about. So I hope you'll see us next week. Take care.
That's all for this episode of Direct with Dana. Thanks for spending part of your day with us. Join us next week for another conversation that informs, challenges, and inspires. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow the show for more content from Direct with Dana.